Hello and greetings from Iceland. This update is simple since I've been on the move, so it will include some of my travel footage. But as for the geology of Iceland, there is nothing drastic going on right now, but plenty of underlying tension, like I mentioned in my last update. And the seismic activity has been strong lately. We got a magnitude 3 plus earthquakes at 3 different locations in the last days, which was not a surprise. And I think it's more to come before things cool down. But it is noticeable that Katla volcano has been doing the annual earthquake swarm since some of the ice is melting from a glacier above the caldera now. And such seismic activity, it will only increase at least until October. But the main question is, as always, will Katla take this all the way this year? And there was an Icelandic expert saying the other day that there are indications that Katla has expanded fully, and that is what came to my mind when we got a little earthquake swarm in Eyjafjallajökull just recently. So the next months, they will be interesting for sure. And I plan to visit Katla soon as a part of my summer schedule. That luckily started well for me, despite the unstable Icelandic climate that almost ruined June for me. And my first major summer tour was all about the volcano Askja to get more footage, since Askja has been teasing us for 3 years now with a constant ground uplift. Not as fast now as it was at first, and I can't get enough footage from there. This is landscape that might change forever very soon, and there's a huge lake, Lake Öskjuvatn. It wasn't even there before the 1875 eruption. That left us with not just a lake, but a living magma chamber right under it in this huge nested caldera. And I made actually a mini documentary 2-3 years ago with a good information package that is still valid. But sometimes when I look at my older work that I made with my first drone and my first microphone, I know I can do better. But in the case of Askja, what we have is a 200-kilometer long fracture swarm that runs through all sorts of landscape, and I simply didn't have footage from all parts of that system. So the remake is about that as well. And despite how extremely difficult the last year was, as for filming conditions, I managed to capture footage from bits and pieces of the enormous Askja fissure swarm, and even more of it now in July. But to go all the way up to the volcano, and actually a bit further, because I wanted to go to the so-called Holuhrauna lava field from the Bárðarbunga eruption in 2014. That is a 250-kilometer detour from highway number 1. And my first attempt this year failed, since when I got to the junction, to the Highland Road, the weather didn't look like it was worth the effort. And then I took off to Dettifoss waterfall to see how the new drone with the excellent zoom lens would do there. And I was capturing footage from angles that are usually not available out there. And again, I got this urge to remake a video, my old Dettifoss video, but the new one will, of course, include new footage from new angles and, most importantly, a roadmap, because the tourism industry, they have guidelines for tourists where they are pushing them to use the West Bank car park. But there are, however, 2 roads up there, and if I were to film not with a drone, I would prefer the old road and film from the east bank of the river, or the place where this famous movie was shot in 2012. And further downstream, I was filming bits and pieces for projects that are related to volcanism in Bárðarbunga volcano, flood stories and other goodies to keep my updates about Bárðarbunga fresh, because I've been talking about that major volcano quite often recently, for a reason. And although this was a tricky day as for filming, and not all my shots got the proper light conditions, I was still pleased with the outcome. And the day after, I took off again, started by the junction to Askja volcano again. The cloud cover looked better, so I placed the mini camera on the hood of my car in order to film the complete road to Askja volcano and even further south. So after I've done a rough cut for that trip, I will make that footage into something fun to watch. And to film around Askja was pure joy this time. But it's always a bit tricky though. The color palette up there is very odd. It's very easy to come back with flat and dull footage. But this time the clouds helped me to get the mystical feeling that I want. And so far I've only uploaded a little trailer that I made while I was checking the footage to see how the dynamic range test would come out from the new drone. And as always, it is not until I have processed files like this that I know how far I can push the camera. Like the contrast, they don't get any stronger than this. So the question that I had while filming this bit was, of course, if I keep the highlights where I want them without overexposing the skies, will the black sand be full of low-light noise and impossible to work with or sell as stock footage? So this was extremely good dynamic range test, and the drone is even better than I thought. So those days, they were a good part of my learning curve. And then I got an email just a few days ago from one of my viewers in America coming to Iceland and going on a helicopter tour. He offered me to join, and it was no way that I was going to say no, because like I mentioned last year when I upgraded my Nikon camera, I have been preparing to do some filming from a plane or a helicopter. And like with everything else, it takes practice. So this tour turned out to be extremely helpful because first of all, I need a gimbal for the Nikon. It is not enough to shoot in 8K and try to stabilize the footage afterwards. And filming from a closed window is not working for me. But some of the footage came out well, and I will use it. But to try this kind of filming with the gear I have now was extremely valuable for me. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity. But I have, however, been noticing that the new drone, it reduces the need for planes and helicopters. So I am rethinking my filming schedule with that in mind. But I will, however, always need some of the extra wide angles with extra good footage. So I can say now that the summer started well as for both my short-term and long-term projects. And the summer is always this race after filming light. That is not always easy. But I used this trip to Reykjavik to do this helicopter tour to film a large volcanic system in West Iceland that has been teasing us recently with earthquakes. And experts say that we have magma there on the move. And since the system is 90 kilometers long, I will have to film it in bits and pieces. And some of the bits I got this time were excellent, while others were not, because I was a bit late when I arrived to the main earthquake location, where we expect the eruption to take place, if it takes place. But even though the sun was low when I got there, I had the chance to see the landscape through my own drone lenses. So my next update from there will be fresh, and I have the area mapped out now as for the next tours, since I know now how the landscape is as for drone signal and such. So this was a very useful tour, or my trip from the north, the helicopter tour, and after that I hurried back north because it had started to rain in the south. And if the weather will be in my favor, it's no way I can process all my video files, but the volcano updates will remain a priority. And I have a feeling that this summer will be eventful and surprising, as there seems to be a whole lot of underlying tension, but it's just so hard to say what is about to hit us next. So I'm only saying now, there is a surprise on the way somewhere. And not even a volcanic eruption on the Reykjanes Peninsula in July would surprise me. And with that, I'm sending you best regards from the volcano island, Iceland.